Welcome to In Progress, because nothing worth building is ever finished. I'm here with Keith Wojcieszek. He's a former chief of the Secret Service Cyber Intelligence Section. He's an expert witness and the man behind takedowns of criminals responsible for more than $1 billion of losses. Keith, welcome.
Thank you very much, Doug. Appreciate it.
Really excited to have you here and for this conversation. Before we dive into the detailed cyber stuff, I'm always so excited to get the behind the scenes folks that are doing all the hard work to keep us safe. Can you take us inside one of those takedowns, the real network, the real money, the real people on the other end, how it actually unfolded?
Yeah, when people actually hear about cyber criminal, they usually picture one person, and we'll go back to the old school in a dark room, hoodie on, basement, whatever it is. But reality could be more different, right? And one case that stands out for me is Roman Seleznev. Was a career case for myself, and at the time, he was one of the most prolific traffickers of stolen credit card data in the world. We estimated his organization was about, I don't know, a couple billion or $1 billion in fraud losses. But what really fascinated me was not just the scale, but really how sophisticated he and his team were. This wasn't just one hacker; it was a business, an operation, and he had developers of malware, compromising point of sale terminals, brokers, stolen credit cards, money launderers, moving profits around the world. It was unbelievable the way the sophistication happened. Everyone had a role, and everyone got paid accordingly. If you look kind of like I would say a Fortune 500 company when you think about it. But it wasn't just an investigation that really took a couple months. This was years and years of actual investigation. It wasn't chasing just one single breach. We started connecting different things. If you think about the movies, when you have little lines going through and pointing out, in a sense, that's what we did. Went from a restaurant in Idaho to servers in Virginia, infrastructure overseas, and different areas on different criminal forums. He had multiple usernames and multiple profiles on there. So piece by piece, we started realizing that some of these people weren't different people at all. They were the same person, or people, I should say a team, every time we got close. So that's really how the investigation works. It's not that you solve them because one piece gives you the complete answer, but really because hundreds of independent pieces all start pointing in one direction. So really for me, when I knew we had him, wasn't really that dramatic. It was when everything started lining up. We had some identities line up, infrastructure kind of matched email accounts. And then when we got in there to some server and some forensics, we saw that travel records, we saw photographs, we saw different family information. Every lead we pulled in and reinforced kind of the last one. So at that point, attribution for that really wasn't based on a single clue. It was based on an overwhelming body of evidence. But even still, it was only like 85% positive that this was the guy. But it was kind of something that in that case, it's kind of high. So we indicted him. He remained in Russia where we couldn't really arrest him because there's no peace treaty for individuals for transnational organized criminals. So we did learn for a source that in 2014, he was going to vacation in the Maldives. And within about 48 hours, the great work of the Secret Service, Department of Justice, Interpol, and the Maldivian government worked together to coordinate his arrest. When we took him into custody, we seized his his laptop. Now we moved passwords because his passwords are, which is funny, and this is why we tell people to change your passwords and make them different. But his passwords are all relatively the same, and there were roughly about 1.7 million stolen credit card numbers on his computer. So and then he had malware communications, and then everything kind of pieced together with that. So he was convicted on dozens of federal charges and sentenced to 27 years in prison. And that to this day is still the largest sentencing to a cyber criminal the world has ever seen. Now, unfortunately, he was part of the trade agreement with President Biden and Russia when they started swapping people back and forth. So I would assume he's probably doing the same thing as he was doing, given 10 years ago.
Yeah, back at work. And that's, I think the perspective that so many of us have is the organization you talked about is way more thoughtful, thorough, and Fortune 500 like, as you described. But many of these folks are in very difficult to reach locations, right?
Definitely.
Where we we don't have the authority or capability, and the country that they're in is not interested in helping. H- how it seems like you did a really unique job of finding where he'd be in a location where you guys could get access to. But how are different Western governments working through that and trying to make a dent when it's so difficult to have any type of consequence for these folks?
Yeah, I think when it really starts to happen and the collaboration happens is when they really see that not only is it affecting, say U.S. based, but it's affecting their country as well, and they want to stop these criminals. It's not nothing. That's not that they don't want to cooperate. I mean, some people have these peace treaty or these treaties that you're able to honor a red notice. But working with OIA, and they're able to collaborate with partners they have there. And then we within the Secret Service back in the day when I was there, we had these great relationships with law enforcement partners, and it wasn't just, hey, the U.S. is coming in and taking them. It's, hey, we're going to help you. He's in your country. Go ahead and arrest him. But hey, let us maybe get a piece of that as well at some point, because we want to bring him back to prosecute him for what he's done here in the U.S. So it's a lot of collaboration and friendships that are created no matter where in the world. I mean, even in Russia. Granted, we can't necessarily arrest them, but I've had success taking down things in Russia because they just don't want it up in their country. So it really kind of depends on the friendships, the relationships, and how you present that to them.
That's great. So it's not as completely desperate as many of us might think, where
Not
there's
always. I mean, nowadays, and I would say the Russian, the U.S. tension is a little bit higher, but you never know.
yeah. And in this case, but it sounds like in many of them, there's a lot of offensive work that I'm guessing you guys have to do, where you turn the tables to really understand who are they and to get that type of information.
Yeah, attribution is one of the hardest things you can do. Like I said, it's about 85% positive of who this individual was. We had an arrest warrant for him. And, looking back, I mean, it was kind of something where you're confident, but you're also scared thinking, what if this isn't the guy? I mean, and it's so you're taking all these chances and you're spending money to go and do all this thing, and you gotta be right. And so, thank goodness we were right. Our partners and all the different governments really helped us out to identify. So I think partnerships and working not only within your own agency, but internal private industry was extremely helpful. If we weren't able to get servers on different locations in Virginia, who knows what would have happened. So the private industry has been very helpful with that and providing credit card numbers and everything. So the partnerships throughout is really what made this successful in the attribution realm.
Yeah, that makes sense. What volume do you see on this attacker landscape? Like, how many of these reasonably organized entities are there globally, and how has that changed over the past 5-10 years?
It's funny. So when we stood up the cyber intelligence section back in the day, we were primarily chasing financial motivated criminals, and basically they just wanted money. Today, the lines have kind of blurred. So back then we had, I call it a deck of 52. It was just something we created, 52 cards in a deck. We kind of ranked them from king, queen, jack, ace of hearts, whatever it is, and we
Right,
gave them
right.
a title and the impact they would have in the criminal enterprise. Back then, you'd say probably about 300 people ran the entire infrastructure for cybercrime. Today, I say it's probably not too far off of that, but you have these offshoots like a scatter spider who does it very loosely and disorganized, but they cause so much havoc. And so I think there's probably more in the lower level games, but when you come to that higher echelon, there's still going to be that probably that 300 top tier criminals that are there. Organized crime really collaborates with everything in general. So you have organized crime with monetary goals as well as nation state leverage. So there's kind of a mix here going on, especially nowadays with the increase of cybercrime.
Yep, yep. And walk people through, like, I have just trying to describe these groups to folks on. It's like a business. I mean, they're very smart. Everyone's doing it for pay. They've got a head of HR. They've got a head of finance. Like, can you walk people through what are these groups really? I know there's kind of what we have in our head often is the lone 14-year-old sitting in their basement trying to do something crazy. And I know that exists. And with AI, that might increase, or it probably is
Agreed.
increasing. But the bulk of the big impact is help paint a picture of how professionalized this is for folks?
Yeah, I think the best way to think about it is kind of the ransomware, the development of ransomware. And I wrote a book on ransomware that never got published, but it's always changing. You can never keep up. Well, say
Yes.
2019, May's ransomware. That's kind of when it really started with not the ransomware itself, but the shaming sites. They would go in, they would encrypt, and then they would provide the shaming site. So they would have that double extortion. Come fast forward to today, they're not encrypting anymore. And a lot has to do with the expense. Let's say because they have to have the infrastructure to take down. Now you're grabbing, it's not gigabytes, it's terabytes, could be petabytes of information. And so they have to have the infrastructure, and it's not free. Whether you have a bulletproof hoster who's hosting the stuff for you, you still have to pay them something. And so on top of that, they used to have this help desk, or they used to have, oh, we'll get you back your data. They don't want to do that anymore because it's too much of an expense. So right there, you see how the maturity of, I would say, their business catalog is going very well because they understand the cost versus the reward, and that's really what they're hitting for right now.
Right. So it tends to be these pretty large groups. They've got many different subdivisions. They've got affiliate groups. There are formal contracts between them on who is doing what and what the payment structure looks like if they're successful. Is that kind of a fair portrayal of at least the more aggressive and impactful folks?
Yeah, I would say the best way to think about it is like a cartel. I mean, they are in a sense a cartel, and that is where it becomes really dangerous because sometimes it's not only for pay, right? It's, hey, I'm going to do this for you, but remember me when I come back and do something else, and so they're working together in a sense where, like you said, there's individual lines based on responsibilities, and working in a cartel-like fashion. They've been doing this for years. Really makes it so difficult for law enforcement to go ahead and apprehend any of them, just because one's covering for another, and they keep on moving things around.
Yep. Yep. So a lot of really interesting experience, and thank you for the opening story. I'm separately able to sit down and get 10 more juicy ones, but a lot of experience working through government to really try and help from that vantage point. When did you transition to try and help private sector, and what gave you the insight that the private sector needed some of the same capabilities and overall frameworks that you guys were running pretty aggressively on the federal side?
I love my time at the Secret Service. It was an incredible mission. The experience was outstanding. Putting bad guys behind bars, it was awesome. It was so good. But I also realized something during the time of it. We're often investigating things that after the damage had already happened, something's already been done, and it can't be reversed. So I wanted not only to do the good, but I wanted to help prevent that damage instead of simply responding to it. And when I moved into consulting, I guess what surprised me the most was that companies lack that technology. They spend millions on technology, but they were missing intelligence. They were missing how to effectively do this. They had security tools producing thousands of alerts, but very little understanding of which threats actually matter to their business. So by understanding that and how I found organizations had cybersecurity a little bit backwards, focus on compliance and buying products, and then trying to apply that is kind of, like I said, it's backwards. But I wanted to be part of it so I could help them provide a protection, because the Secret Service is all about prevention, always about scripting things, making sure everything is right. So I wanted to apply that to private industry, which I got the opportunity to do, and which has been so rewarding.
As you went into private industry, walk us through how different that landscape is versus the approach that the government's been taking. You kind of glanced on. There's a lot of money being spent, but the philosophy and the orientation within most corporations is pretty dramatically different than what you're used to.
It is.
How?
Oh my, yes, it definitely is. The biggest surprise moving into private industry is the speed. One investigation I talked, it took years and very methodical, because every piece of evidence has to stand up at court. We have to make sure that you have proof behind everything. Not in business. Business moves just so quickly, and executives, and I feel bad because they have to make multi-million-dollar decisions with really imperfect information. And my role kind of shifted from that methodical, slow, not I would say slow, but collecting as you go along, to proving what happened, to helping leaders understand what is most likely happening and what should they do next. And so in doing that, that was extremely beneficial for me and for the company, because now I have the other side experience as well. And so it was very rewarding to see how fast things work. It's kind of like going from collegiate sports to the NHL. Like I'm a big hockey fan. It's that speed that makes the difference, and that was the biggest shift that I saw coming out of government.
So the private sector moves much more quickly, but it sounds like for many organizations, they don't know how to use that speed. That their understanding of the nefarious actors and their orientation on both effective threat intel and offensive capability is in a very different realm. Like, walk us through how you try and advise customers to take a different philosophy and approach.
And it's like I said earlier, talking about preparation. Preparation is key to everything. It really is. No matter what you do in life, preparation is key. And that's what the Secret Service taught me, is to be prepared. Rehearse everything. Don't build your crisis plan during a crisis, right? You want to make sure that when you're building it, it's already built. You already run through it. Everyone knows their piece of the pie. They know what they're going to do, how they're going to do it, where they're doing it. The organizations that respond best to cyber incidents are the ones that really practice before any phone rings, any alarm goes off. And having done that with the Secret Service and bringing that over to the organizations that I've worked with has been very successful, because understanding that, hey, listen, you may have every security feature known to man, but what are you going to do when the guy actually gets in through a 0 day, something that you have not planned for? What do you do? And when you bring that into perspective, it's very beneficial for that organization, and from the top down, to understand what the true risks are and what the risk tolerances are.
So as you're working with, I'm assuming are you going through the chief information security officer as the prime, or are you coming more CEO and board level within these organizations?
So we usually come in through the CISO. That's probably the most, I guess, the most repetitive. But honestly, the best organizations that hold cybersecurity high are those that are run and managed and really day-to-day operationally seen by the CEO and the C-suite. Because once individuals see the C-suite being so emphatic about how cybersecurity affects them, not only as, it's not just an IT problem, right? It's a business risk problem. And
Right.
the CEOs and the executives that see that, they become more successful and are less prone to attack, because they're applying the correct protocols in order to protect themselves.
So a CEO and a board that is aligned, that's going to make a job easier. What are the characteristics? Like, how do they feel different than the typical organization? It's like, oh no, that all this cyber stuff, it's this person over here that is good, that has to manage some.
The biggest is, I tell you, you can see it in a CISO, because when the CISO has freedom to protect it the way that he or she feels it should be protected, that's how you know that the CEO is directly involved. And it's also a line of reporting, right? Because if the CEO, if the CISO reports and the chief security officer reports into the CEO, I mean, that's okay. But I've seen the CISOs that report directly to the CEO, and man, what a difference. Because it's the conversation is more prone to be a positive one, because they're not there just to spend money. They're there to actually make things stronger. And you'd be shocked to how many Fortune 100 companies I've seen that are more vulnerable than you could possibly imagine. And we've seen it, right? We've seen the Colonial Pipeline is a great example. Someone forgot to turn off access to an intern, and MFA and all this stuff, and they got in and they hacked in there, and all of a sudden it's lights out and gas prices skyrocket. So it's those that directly report to the CEO or the CSO that are really more effective than anything.
Yeah. So it's a executive team that's made the transition to understand that online is one of the most critical business continuity areas within the organization, or and therefore elevates the cyber role.
Yes, I mean 100%. Like, the understanding the board, or I would say, if we talk about the board in themselves, every conversation I wish every board would have would be, if we're attacked tomorrow, what decisions do we have to make in the first 24 hours? And who's responsible for each single one? The preparation. Everyone in the boardroom today that I've seen assumes that someone else has already figured this out, and they probably haven't. Organizations that perform the best during any crisis are the ones that rehearse the conversations before the crisis. Goes back to preparation. During the first 24 hours, the least prepared person in the room often is the business executives who suddenly are responsible for making major decisions. And they don't know, right? And that's where the flaw comes into play.
Yep, that makes sense. So the cyber landscape has changed a lot over the past 3 or 4 years, both on the nefarious actor side and technologically. What are you seeing as those major changes and how do you see the landscape today versus 3 or 4 years ago?
So there's a couple different things that change, right? We're like you talked about earlier, a lot of financially motivated criminals back in 2010 or so. They just wanted money, right? Today, those lines are definitely blurred. Organizations have crime syndicates that collaborates with nation states. And it used to be they were separated a little bit better back in the day. And now nation states leverages criminal infrastructure. North Korea is a prime example. They use their, the North Korean IT worker scam, the remote IT worker scam to fund their weapons program. And this is documented in DOJ. And so by doing this, ransomware groups, steal data, extort victims, conduct espionage, and influence public opinion all at once. So this is all going on at the same time. And they're the same criminals. They used to do like nation state during the day and then criminal enterprise at night. Now it's just kind of everything is into one. The attack surface itself has exploded because the businesses are more connected than they ever before with everything up in the cloud and the way things are going. If I was to understand something, and something that really kind of would keep me up every night would be identity, because AI has made it dramatically easier to impersonate trusted people. The cloning, the whatever you want to use it, whether it's a CEO's voice, convincing phishing email, those, if you've ever seen the synthetic videos, they're exploiting trust even faster and faster and faster, and it's quicker than any organization can adapt.
And they're doing why do they do that? Like why is accessing identity and credentials so important to their activity to ensure higher success? Kind of walk us through a little bit of the kill chain and how these things transpire.
Yeah, it's making everything efficient, right? So if you have the ID, if you have access, you're able to get access to much quicker, move laterally much faster. And if you have that access of the CEO or the CSO or CISO, and you've voice cloned them and said, "Hey, I'm on a phone. I put my computer in my carry on. I'm not, or my checked luggage. I totally forgot. Can you just resend me a password? Send it to my personal account." And the IT desk thinks, "Oh my gosh, yes, let me do this for you right away." And we've seen it hundreds of times. That right there, it's immediate access to the golden ticket that everyone wants to have in order to access an environment. So the advantage is really going to belong to whichever side adapts first. Right now, it's the criminal side. So I think doing what you're doing here is so important, because it's going to help people understand that, hey, listen, I need to have some type of protocol, like you said, a kill chain, to understand how do I stop this before I can start it. And that preparation, again, comes into play.
Yep. So we think about the typical landscapes within most companies. There's the whole activity of trying to prevent people from getting in, two-factor authorization, et cetera. But how do I firewall things, et cetera? And then when someone gets valid credentials, or when they're able to exploit a vulnerability, a 0-day, then the standard response has been, how quickly can you detect that activity and respond? As people are driving valid credentials, like again, they've gotten the CEO's password or some administrator's password, and or they're able to exploit a whole series of vulnerabilities because of these new models like Mythos across broad area of the estate. How do you see that detection piece changing?
Well, I mean, AI is here to stay, right? I mean, that's we've been talking about AI forever, and so, but people are afraid of it. I don't understand why. I think it's good and bad, right? AI makes the defenders dramatically more efficient, but it also lowers the barriers for attacks. Criminals don't have to run malware anymore from scratch, which again is very beneficial for them. They can automate the phishing, impersonation, reconnaissance, whatever you want to call it. But AI isn't replacing the attackers or defenders; it's making both sides faster. So using AI as a defender and how we protect something is going to be the answer to a lot of this. And Mythos is a great example because they didn't realize everyone. Well, I don't know. Some of the perception was, oh my gosh, they're doing something new here. This is not really doing anything new. It's just identifying gaps faster. And so, can we keep up with that? If we apply AI on top of that, possibly. But again, AI versus AI, it's really that AI battle and how we're using it, and if we're using it effectively and efficiently. It's the knowledge and not be afraid of it, but embrace it and understand that this can be the answer to a lot of or a lot of our problems, and be the solution that protects us best.
Yeah. So if we think about Mythos and all the concern about Mythos, what concerns you about because Mythos is just a point in time, it's where all the models are going, about the capability that the frontier labs and the open source world are driving with AI and the agentic piece when you apply it to the typical cyber perspective within an organization.
You know, I'm nervous because I think people might start just throwing their hands up. Like, what can we do? Right. And they're going to be prone to more of an attack because of it. That's like, I think that's what scares me when it comes to organizations, especially little shops, little delis, little convenience stores that have this and have these, that they have vulnerabilities. They do, right? They can't afford it and their budgets are low. So looking at something like Mythos that can go and exploit, or any type of AI that can exploit these gaps that are and it's not even one, it's multiple gaps that can turn into one big problem, right? And that's what it is. It's that speed. But understanding and preaching and telling people, go, hey, get out there, this is what you need to do. And even have the government today, and I think they're doing a pretty decent job at this, but having them, educate individuals, educate people, open up their doors and say, listen, we want to help, and this is how we can. That's going to be the key to it. That's going to be the helping nature that we need in order to protect ourselves from this.
So with advanced AI, the ability to get in seems to be lowering pretty dramatically. The future feels like a future where breach, which was once considered a rare event, is not going to be rare at all anymore. Finding a way to get into an environment, whether it's a local deli or whether it's a Fortune 500 company, that seems to be what everyone's most concerned about. That's what I'm most concerned about. Is the barriers that made it very difficult to find organizations and penetrate them seem to be lowering pretty quickly for the nefarious actors. How would you view that changing based on what's going on with the? Why is that changing? Like why is it going to be so much easier?
It's a tough one, right? Because adversaries now are looking at different types of ways to get in, not only through, and I'll be honest with you, this is still the best way to get into anyone. When I was doing different types of, proactive approach and going in, trying to get in and trying to get access, phishing is the number one. It's so easy to get in with phishing or social media or social engineering. Like, those two things are the top two, right? That's simple. But those that are trying to get in through AI, it's challenging, right? It's not something that's very easy. But in order to do it, you have to know the technical skills, or at least have some idea of how to work it. And the adversaries today, they're these multinational organizations with budgets and with specialization, intelligence capabilities, and these business models. And the way that they're utilizing access points is something that we everyone here knows. We just need to know how to protect it better and what's important. Understanding, and it really comes down to understanding, okay, what's important to me in this organization and how am I protecting it? And am I protecting it sufficient enough that I can thwart off any of these bad guys?
How are they utilizing these access points? How has that changed?
So a couple of things, right? They're utilizing the access points for sale. They want to sell that money. They want to sell this out there. A lot of different. I mean, I would if I was to do it right now, I'd be selling access point after access point, right? That's the way to make money. It's very easy. You sell it, boom, you're gone, right? You give them a certain time frame. You open it up, you close it down, they're done. Another one is they're utilizing just for reconnaissance. They just want to understand how the business operates, and then they'll go in and then attack effectively and efficiently without anybody knowing. You're going to see that in the more sophisticated groups. And then they're using access points just to cause as much damage as possible. The ransomware groups and stuff that are just trying to get data, pull them out, and then exploit them. So they have different avenues of way they access or where they use the access points.
Yep. So the two main objectives, I mean, there's many objectives that the attackers have, and depending on who you are, but for at least making money, the two main objectives seem to be, I need to exfil data, sensitive data, critical data, or I need to insert ransomware. I need to find a way to shut down your environment. Is that fair as to the two major activities that
I would say
money
so.
motivated?
Yeah, definitely. I think that they want to cause damage, right? That's the biggest thing. You have those reconnaissance, the North Koreans, the Iranians, the China. They're all trying. Russians are doing this reconnaissance, but on top of that, they're definitely doing these loud noise, big bang within the environment to be able to exploit. And whether it's for multiple reasons, it could be for financial gain, it could be for if we have all these elections coming up, changing the elections. Now I know they just had a big election in Colombia. And so was anything used there? I mean, I haven't had the time to research that, but I'd be interested to see how the social media played out in there as well. So all of this stuff that we're seeing is affected in multiple aspects of it.
So if we're seeing folks do a much better job because of all this work writing valid credentials, they're getting better at phishing, they're getting better at collecting credentials and then reselling them. And we've got a scenario where the exploit of 0 days has become easier and easier. Those are two huge entry points.
Huge.
What could companies do while they work to harden their environment? Make it harder. Have less exploits that people can get access to. Rotate credentials more quickly. Like set up the processes. What do you see as effective and appropriate defense and architecture that could help minimize the impact that organizations are going to feel from these bad actors?
The biggest thing, and I think California is doing it right now. They're doing I think it's the CCPA that they're mandating these tests, like the red pen tests, that they're making sure that all these gaps are closed, and they're mandating it every 2 years. And that to me is even too long. But you should be doing these threat assessments time and time again to see where the access points exist, understanding what's on your network. I know we've talked about this before, like just everybody, I would guarantee that a lot of these companies don't even know what's on their network. It could be a rogue employee that just wants to get out to the internet because he wants to download stuff, doesn't want to go through a firewall, so uses an open port, a port 80 somewhere, and then just starts going out and using the internet. It's not protected for anything. And so, understanding your network and then understanding how people can get in is number one, 100% number one. Number two is applying the solutions that come into play with what happens, because a lot of people do these pen tests and be like, okay, great, we know, thank you, and then don't do anything about it. And then it's actually that action or I guess reaction to that action that is really important to effectively push all of these bad guys out of the way and I hate to say it, but make them go somewhere else.
Right. Yeah. Make it harder. Make your environment less attractive than others.
Yeah. Exactly. That's just it. Like, that's what is it? The lion's going after the slow one. The last person in line is going to get it. So just don't be that last person.
Yeah. Don't be the fastest. You just can't.
Just don't be the slowest.
Really good conversation. I really appreciate that. Are you willing to go through a couple of rapid fire?
Sure.
Quick responses?
Sure.
What do you think is the biggest myth in cyber today?
I would say that cybersecurity is a technology problem. It's not. It's a business risk. And once people start understanding that, I think that's where you're going to get a lot of defenders going to be able to embrace that and become better. So definitely not that. It's not a technical problem. It's a business risk problem.
Do you see AI as more of a defender's edge or an attacker's gift?
I'm going to go with 50-50 on both on that, because the organizations that embrace it are going to be, will definitely have the advantage. But if you don't embrace it, then it's going to be a threat. So embracing AI, which I believe a lot of people are doing that now, embracing AI is so important. And it's not ChatGPT, right? That's not what I'm talking about. It's actually using it as on a defense.
As a system, as an entire system.
Correct.
Given our conversation, are you more worried about lone wolf, organized crime, or nation state?
They're kind of one and the same, but I would say at this point, depending on who you are, right? Depending on what kind of information you maintain, the nation state is the biggest one. They're all getting in the same way, but the nation state is very, very organized, and they have a lot of funding in order to do it correctly. So right now, I would definitely lean towards the nation state as something that I'm very worried about when it comes to anyone that has information that another nation would be prone to get. A lot of the infrastructure and a lot of the infrastructure for the U.S. or for any company itself, that is extremely important. Otherwise, talking about, like we talked about, little delis and stuff like that, those are the lone wolf that would actually shut them down.
Right. Yeah. It's probably different tools, or different groups are attacking different folks.
Definitely.
Why, given the service area and the tooling and the sophistication of nation states, adversarial nation states, and their motivation, why aren't we seeing significantly more catastrophic activity right now? What do you think is keeping North Korea or Iran or Iraq or Russia from just devastating big chunks of our economy?
It's funny you asked that, because I was thinking about that the other day. I remember back in 2020 when the war, Ukrainian-Russian war, 2021, the Ukrainian-Russian war started, and everyone was so afraid that we're going to see destruction, we're going to see all this stuff, and it just kind of nothing happened. But I think that it's all about preparation. I think there is stuff going on, but it's more of a timing thing. They have access. They do have access. Look at Stryker. That should scare the heck out of people. Why that's not getting more attention, I don't know. But that is exactly what I'm afraid of. And that's something that they're doing. They're having this access, they're maintaining this access, and making sure that when they need it, they're going to use it. They're going to be very strategic about it. So that's why you're not seeing it, is because they're very they're very smart about how they attack. And it's not this huge thing, because then everyone's going to be going and trying to fix their systems and looking for it. It's these small little hiccups that are causing more distraction than you would think.
That makes sense. Speaking of Stryker, what is the breach that changed how you think? Like what are or one or two breaches that really impacted you?
I would say the Colonial Pipeline really kind of shocked me. Right, that was one that that one really kind of shook me up a little bit. Just trying to think, my gosh, you have to disable people that are no longer there, right? And then the Stryker, just seeing how fast they spread. Couple hours, and they spread through phones like crazy, and just the access points and the ability to what they did there is just astounding. And to actually understand, and if you were to really go into in depth in that investigation and what occurred there, people should be worried. They really should be worried, and making sure that this is something that we have a protection for. So I would say Stryker is the biggest one that I've had in the recent days.
And why? Because of the effectiveness of lateral movement. What is it about the Stryker example that
they weren't just focused on one region, right? It was all over the world. They didn't focus just on computers. They had a lot of everything was with phones, and how they went through the phones and what they were able to wipe everything in just a bat of an eye. And so having that access, I mean, you do that to a company, you're done, right? and I'm again, that just surprises me that the efforts of notifying people of what Stryker truly was is not as grand as I thought it would be. But I think that's just the speed and the devastation, destruction that occurred during that attack.
Yeah, in our language, we'd frame that as the reachability graph was insane at Stryker and at
Yeah.
Colonial. Like people get so interested on how they get in. It's like, no, that's not the hard part. Like
No.
it's easy.
Yeah.
It's how do
It
you
is easy.
right? How when you get in, how quickly can you move? How pervasively
Yeah,
can you move?
hours. 2 hours, I think it was. 2 hours, and they got all these thousands and thousands of devices. It's phenomenal. It's just phenomenal.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. That's what keeps me up at night the most is the
Yes.
reachability of scores. So along those lines, last question, to really get educated and to make an impact, is there any one or two books or one or two podcasts you listen to that you recommend everybody spend some time on in
So
the
my
in the security in the
Yeah,
security area?
well, my favorite book, my favorite series, and not really a series, is Turn the Ship Around. It's one of the greatest books. It talks about leadership and how to become a great leader. Another one is Five Dysfunctions of a Team. They're actually both behind me here, but they're just understanding it, and this really plays in the part of how, not only in team. I guess team relationships and stuff like that, but it's actually how you run a business, and understanding and being a good leader will effectively make you more secure. And so that I think those two books, The Five Dysfunctions of a Team and Turn the Ship Around, are one of the greatest books that I've ever written.
I really like that. It goes through the theme of cyber has certainly got a technical backbone, as you were saying, but it's a business problem. It's a business problem and a
It
business
is.
risk.
It is a big
It
business
goes
problem.
how much trust and communication and do you have across an organization? Yep.
Agreed.
Love it. Well, great conversation, Keith. I really appreciate you spending time with us. And I'm looking forward to a lot more time and more stories in the coming months and years with you.
Definitely. Thank you, Doug. I really appreciate the opportunity. And this is a wonderful program that I think is going to educate a lot of people. And it's really good you're having something like this put out there, because this is what the people need in order to learn more about some of the risks that are occurring.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you as well.